Teenagers often feel invincible, like nothing can touch or bring them down. But what happens when life throws a curveball that changes everything? In this video, we will explore the different reactions of 5 teenagers who have seen their lives fall like a house of cards right in front of their eyes after receiving a life sentence. Number 5. Shondell Jackson, a mere 18-year-old at the time, along with his companion Derek Thomas, were actively on the prowl for unsuspecting victims. Their paths crossed with Nathan Potter, a student just heading home after a visit to a bar. In a turn of events that would forever change their lives, the duo decided to rob Potter. The story takes a darker twist when, upon realizing that Potter doesn't have any cash on him, Jackson makes the regrettable decision to shoot him fatally. Following this cold-blooded act, Jackson tried to flee the scene, making a run for Mississippi. However, justice wasn't too far behind. His uncle, unable to bear the burden of knowledge, blew the whistle on Jackson's hideout, leading to his capture. Now, years later, Jackson is expressing remorse for his actions, pleading for mercy and understanding. "I apologize for what I've done. Please don't take my life," he shared through his attorney. His lawyer urged the judge to consider Jackson's youthful age and uncontrolled impulses when determining the sentence. But the courtroom drama rose when Judge Rebecca Dalla ruled with an iron hand, sentencing Jackson to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Chaos ensued in the courtroom, with Jackson's family members voicing their anguish loud and clear, targeting Potter's family with their screams. Fortunately, the courtroom scuffle didn't lead to any serious injuries. Despite the chaotic courtroom, the gavel had spoken, and Jackson was destined to spend the rest of his life behind bars. Number 4. TJ Lane. In Ohio, on the 27th of February, 2012, a teenager, TJ Lane, just 18 years old at the time, transitioned from a regular teenager to a feared murderer in American history. As per the records shared by the police, it was an ordinary day when Lane casually walked into the school. He made his way to the cafeteria, and it was here where the everyday scene turned into a gruesome tale. Lane showered a barrage of bullets, an act that resulted in the loss of 3 students and devastating injuries to 3 others. However, the shock doesn't end there. When the time came for Lane to face the court, his behavior was far from what you'd expect of someone facing such grave charges. He walked confidently into the courtroom, dressed casually in a blue button-down shirt, showing no signs of remorse. One could say it was a mask all along, as soon moments into the trial, Lane's disdainful attitude revealed his true nature. When the prosecutors made their case to Judge David Fury, TJ simply smirked brazenly. In a display of utter disrespect, he even raised a middle finger to the grieving families of his victims.
Same pulled the trigger, they killed your son, now masturbates to the memory. Fuck all of you.
The presiding judge described Lane's act as heinous, unprovoked, and senseless, completely void of any humanity or remorse. The gravity of Lane's actions led to his sentence, 3 life terms in prison, with no chance of parole. Indeed, it is a grim reminder of how one person's actions can shatter many lives. Number 3. Willard Miller, Jeremy Goodale. On the surface, Willard Miller and Jeremy Goodale were just 16-year-old boys. However, a sinister twist of events would lead them to be charged with the murder of their high school Spanish teacher, a crime purportedly motivated by a bad grade. Every cloud has a silver lining, so they say. However, the cloud hanging over Fairfield High School in the idyllic corner of southeastern Iowa, where Miller and Goodale were pupils, was unfortunately dark and ominous. Noema Graber, the Spanish teacher, was unsuspectedly marked by her student Miller, who was disappointed after receiving a bad grade from her. It seems that Miller and his sidekick Goodale, fueled by their anger, hatched a disturbing plan to take her life. You can't judge a book by its cover, and the tragic circumstance that unfolded on Graber's routine walk at Shadowwaka City Park is a stark reminder of this. The boys, hiding behind the facade of innocence, stalked their unsuspected victim, laying an ambush for her. What happened next goes beyond the imagination of any horror fiction. They dragged her into the woods, and using a baseball bat, they committed the unthinkable. Afterward, they seemed to be numb to their heinous act, discussing how they had no concrete plan to dispose of the body.
She comes, and she walked by and hit her in the back of the head, and then I said, "Oh shit, make sure she's dead." So we hit her a couple more times.
Their secret wasn't kept for long. After their arrest, court documents revealed that a witness, who was acquainted with Goodale, provided law enforcement with Snapchat messages from the accused. These messages chillingly depicted their involvement in the crime. The judge eventually passed his sentence, ruling that both defendants would serve life with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Miller, perhaps finally grasping the gravity of his actions, offered an apology even before the sentence was announced. Number 2. Alyssa Bustamante. Alyssa was only 15 when she committed a crime in Missouri back in 2009. She took sweet Elizabeth Olsen's life, a vibrant 9-year-old girl who, sadly, was just looking to have some fun at Alyssa's house that fateful night. Elizabeth never returned home. Can you imagine the panic her parents must have felt? Pretty quickly, they smelt a rat and reported their baby girl missing to the police. Following this, for the next 2 days, you could literally see police stopping every passing car at Elizabeth's house. They were desperate for help, desperate to find this missing 9-year-old child. The police found a shallow grave exactly where the phone's signal was coming from. In that very grave, they find Elizabeth's lifeless body. It was a find that made Alyssa the main suspect and led to a confession that shook everyone to their core.
We're here for today for the purposes of arraignment on the charge. Mr. King?
Ms. Bustamante will waive formal arraignment and enter pleas of not guilty.
All right. And what do you want to do today then? Do you want to take up any other motions that you filed?
Not at this.
Absolute certainty of life without parole. If there was another option, then there would have been no reason to have.
In the final verdict, she was handed down a lifelong jail sentence. On top of that, she was given an additional 30 years behind bars. As the sentence was being read, she stayed stone-faced and didn't reveal any noticeable emotions, much like a psychopath. Number 1. Brendan Deppa. A teenage lad from Florida found himself in hot waters after a video of him attacking a school aide surfaced. The shocking footage showed how a simple act, like confiscating Brendan's Nintendo Switch, spiraled into a violent outburst. Young Brendan Deppa, just 18, impulsively lunged at the aide, Nadich, and a barrage of kicks and punches followed. It was heart-wrenching to watch as Nadich eventually lost consciousness under Brendan's relentless assault. Life will never be the same for Brendan, who was diagnosed with autism and has an emotional capacity as fragile as a 6-year-old. On August 6th, a teary-eyed plea from his adoptive mother for leniency fell on deaf ears. Brendan was handed a heavy sentence, 5 years in jail with an additional 15 years of probation. Like a mother bear protecting her cub, Brendan's mother, Leanne Deppa, fiercely contested the verdict. In her eyes, the punishment was not merely about Brendan's actions. She voiced her concerns, stating, "They are punishing him because he's black, because he's physically imposing, and because he has a disability." Further adding fuel to the fire, she expressed her disappointment in the school authorities. Leanne believed they failed to diligently implement a personalized behavior management plan for Brendan. In a pained voice, she said her son needs support instead of being tucked away in a prison where he's susceptible to harm or manipulation.
His violence, Mr. Deppa's violence, relates to factors outside of the autism spectrum. That is, that the violence was not caused by the ASD. He has a lot of triggers, so frequency and intensity of violence.
The road ahead may seem steep for Brendan, but there's a glimmer of hope. Perkins, the voice of justice in court that day, affirmed that the 18-year-old has the right to appeal against his sentence. So, what do you think is the possible solution for teenagers getting life sentences? Let us know in the comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.